My in-laws abandoned me and my daughter at the airport, even though I paid for the entire trip. My next decision made them regret it. Have you ever helped your family unconditionally, only to be met with indifference and betrayal? Have you ever believed you were building a home, only to realize you were nothing more than a walking wallet in their eyes? My story is of being abandoned, standing up for myself and reclaiming my true freedom. Hello, my name is Ethan Carter. I'm 35 years old and an architect living in New York. 3 months ago my daughter and I were abandoned at the airport. On a vacation, I had paid for the entire family. I remember that day vividly. It was a sunny Saturday morning in June. My 7-year-old daughter, Eva, and I had been excited all week preparing for our trip. She had picked out a light blue dress with her favorite unicorn backpack strapped on. I can still picture her running around the living room that morning, laughing uncontrollably from sheer happiness. But now we were frozen in place at JFK Airport, surrounded by hundreds of people rolling their suitcases across the marble floor, the constant airport announcements echoing in the background. Yet I heard nothing. My eyes were fixed on the electronic departures board, where one cold, unforgiving line of text stared back at me. Flight of 9843 to the Bahamas departed. It felt like the ground had collapsed beneath me, swallowing all our excitement and anticipation. I looked down at Eva. She clutched my hand tightly, her wide innocent eyes filled with confusion and disappointment. "Daddy, why didn't they wait for us?" Her voice trembled as if hoping I could say anything that would make this okay. But how could I explain that our own family had left us behind? I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking as I scrolled through my contacts and called my mother. My heart pounded as the call connected after a few rings. "Ethan, we just arrived at the resort. The weather is amazing." My mother-in-law's cheerful voice rang through the phone as if nothing was wrong. I went rigid. "Mom, what's going on?" I forced myself to stay calm. "You told me the flight was at 10 a.m. but it left at 7. She chuckled. "You must have remembered it wrong. We tested you about it." A chill ran down my spine. I immediately opened our family group chat. The last message from my mother-in-law was still there staring back at me. "Flight at 10 a.m. Don't be late." I hadn't remembered it wrong. They had deliberately left us behind. And what was worse, they didn't even care. I sank onto a bench at the airport, feeling completely drained. The overhead announcements droned on. Passengers bustled past with their luggage, and families chatted excitedly about their upcoming vacations. But it all blurred together. Like a movie I no longer wanted to watch. I opened WhatsApp and scrolled up in-laws family group chat. A fresh photo had just been sent minutes ago. In-laws, my brother-in-law, Kevin, and his son all lounging on the beach, cocktails in hand, their faces beaming with joy. No hesitation, no message asking where I was, no apology. It was as if I had never existed. This wasn't the first time they had treated me this way. I was used to giving without receiving anything in return. I had paid my in-laws' rent for the past 2 years, helped Kevin financially when he was unemployed, and covered the entire cost of this vacation, only to be left behind without a second thought. Ava tugged at my hand, her voice small. "What are we going to do, now?" "Daddy." I looked at her, then down at the 2 plane tickets in my hand. Now nothing more than useless scraps of paper, but then an idea sparked in my mind. I smiled and squeezed her hand gently. "We're going to have our vacation without giving myself a chance to reconsider." I immediately started canceling every financial support I had provided to my in-laws for the past 2 years. I opened my banking app, feeling detached as my fingers hovered over each recurring transaction. Cancel monthly transfers to my in-laws. I sent the money for 2 years to cover their rent and utility bills. I once believed it was my responsibility to help them for Rachel's sake, for Ava's sake. But after everything, how had they treated me? Stop paying Kevin's rent. When he was unemployed, I helped him stay on his feet. But instead of working toward independence, he had grown comfortable relying on my money, living life as if it were his entitlement. Revoked their access to my Netflix and Spotify accounts. A small action sent a clear message. I was no longer their ATM. Did they want to cut me out of this trip? Then I would cut them out of my life. Ava watched me as I finished, her curious eyes searching mine. "Daddy, where are we going?" I smiled, gently brushing her hair back. "We're going to make our amazing vacation." I set my phone down, leaned back against the bench. And for the first time in years I felt light. For the first time I was truly free, probably wondering, maybe even calling me an idiot for financially supporting my in-laws for the past 2 years. I'm not stupid. I knew all along that they were taking advantage of me, but I did it anyway. I did it for my late wife. Rachel, my wife, left this world 2 years ago in a horrific car accident. Her death shattered both my life and Ava's. I still remember that night like it was yesterday, rushing to the hospital in a panic, only to hear the doctor say we did everything we could for Rachel passed. She had only one request. "Ethan, if you can, please take care of my parents and my brother for me. I know they're not perfect." But my family, I don't want them to struggle. At the time I agreed without hesitation. I loved Rachel. This were what she wanted. I would do it. Maybe Rachel was wrong because family isn't supposed to be the people who exploit you at every opportunity. This wasn't the first time my in-laws had cut Eva and me out. Last Thanksgiving was the perfect example. I remember leaving the office early that day, excited to drive Eva to my in-laws' house. I thought they would want us there, that we would gather together to remember Rachel and try to move forward as a family. But when I arrived, the door was locked. I called my mother-in-law. After 3 rings, she picked up, her voice slightly uneasy. "Ethan, we didn't think you were coming. Kevin said you were busy with work. So we started dinner without you." Froze, dizzy. Who told them that I could hear the laughter and chatter inside? My in-laws, Kevin, his wife and their little boy gathered around the dinner table. And yet, Eva and I stood outside like strangers. I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't want Eva to see the disappointment in my eyes. So I said, "That's okay. I'll take Eva out for dinner somewhere else." We sat in a small diner that night, eating roasted chicken and mashed potatoes. Eva giggled as she stuffed her mouth full of pumpkin pie, but I could barely swallow. My in-laws hadn't said it outright, but their actions made it clear. I had never been a part of their family. At the time I told myself it was just a misunderstanding. But now I see it for what it was, a choice. They had cut me out long ago. I had just been too blind to realize it. 3 days after they returned from vacation, my phone started buzzing non-stop. They had noticed the change. This time it wasn't just messages, it was relentless calls. I didn't answer. I already knew what they would say, and I had no interest in hearing their meaningless complaints. First message came from my father-in-law. "Ethan, our Netflix logged out. Is there an issue with your card?" Then, almost immediately, my mother-in-law. "My Spotify isn't working. I tried logging back in, but it says the account has been deleted. Is this a mistake?" I let out a dry chuckle. They had never noticed me before, but suddenly paid attention. The second the free perks were gone, it didn't stop there. Another message popped up from Kevin. "The landlord just called me asking for rent. You didn't pay them yet." I stared at the screen but didn't reply. Few minutes later, my mother-in-law called. When I didn't pick up, she left a long message. "Ethan, what's going on? Call us back immediately." I read the message, then without responding, I placed my phone on the table. The next day the calls became even more relentless. My phone buzzed non-stop. First my mother-in-law, then my father-in-law, and Kevin. From morning till evening my screen was flooded with missed calls. I didn't answer. I already knew exactly what they would say, and I had no obligation to explain myself over the phone that evening. As I pulled into my driveway, I saw them standing in front of my house. My father-in-law stood with his arms crossed, his face tense with irritation. My mother-in-law looked at me with concern while Kevin paced back and forth, barely containing his frustration. I sighed, turned off the engine, and exited the car. I knew this was coming. "Ethan, would you care to explain what's going on?" My father-in-law was the first to speak, his voice low and strained. I didn't want to argue in the driveway. So I stepped past them, unlocked the door and gestured inside. "Come in." The living room lights were on. Eva sat in her room, happily drawing, blissfully unaware of the confrontation about to unfold. I motioned for them to sit on the couch, then took a deep breath before speaking. "You don't need to act surprised from now on. I'm not supporting this family financially anymore. That includes your rent, Kevin's rent, everything. It's over." The moment my words left my mouth, the room turned sufficiently tense. My mother-in-law stared at me as if I had just said something unthinkable. My father-in-law clenched his fists, his jaw tightening and barely contained anger. Kevin let out a scoffing laugh, shaking his head mockingly. My mother-in-law was the first to speak, her voice trembling but sharp. "Ethan, do you even realize what you're saying? How could you be so heartless? This family has been by your side since Rachel passed. Now you're turning your back on us over a vacation." My father-in-law slammed his hand on the table, his voice filled with authority. "Ethan, stop acting like a selfish, irresponsible child. You're a man, you're supposed to be the provider. Since Rachel died, it's been your duty to care for her family. Do you think cutting us off means you're free of responsibility? You owe this family. Do you understand? Owe them?" Anger surged through my chest. I had paid for everything for 2 years without a complaint or late payment. I ensured they lived comfortably, even when they barely acknowledged me or Eva, and now they stood here, looking at me like I was the traitor. Kevin leaned back on the couch, arms crossed, his voice dripping with mockery. "You think you're doing the right thing. If Rachel were alive, she'd be ashamed to see how you treat her family." My fists clenched. Did they dare to bring Rachel into this, to manipulate me using her memory? Disgusting. My voice dropped, quiet but lethal. "Don't bring Rachel into this." I met Kevin's gaze, my expression ice cold. "Rachel was the only person in this family who loved me and Eva. The rest of you, you only loved my money." I turned to all of them. If you're here to guilt trip me over cutting off your free ride, this conversation is over. Get out of my house. I took a step forward. My voice sharp as steel, I won't say it twice. If you're not out of here in 1 minute, I'll call the police. The room froze. My mother-in-law's hands trembled. My father-in-law glared at me as if daring me to back down. But then he huffed, turned on his heel and stormed out. Kevin muttered a curse under his breath, but he too dragged his feet toward the door. The door slammed shut behind them. I stood still momentarily, taking a deep breath and letting the tension drain from my body. Then a small voice spoke from behind me. "Daddy, are Grandma and Uncle Kevin mad at you?" I turned around. Eva stood in the hallway, her big eyes filled with curiosity. I knelt, pulling her close, running a gentle hand through her soft hair. "It's okay, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups throw tantrums too." Eva blinked. But why? I smiled reassuringly. "Because from now on we're going to take care of each other. Instead of caring for people who don't deserve it." She tilted her head, thinking momentarily, then her face lit up. "So that means we can go on vacation without anyone else." I nodded. "Exactly, in 3 days. We're going on our trip somewhere with a beautiful beach, just the two of us and no one to bother us." Her eyes sparkled like little stars. "Really? Where are we going?" A grind, winking. "That's a surprise. But I promise you're going to love it." Eva squealed in excitement and threw her arms around me. I closed my eyes, holding her tight, savoring the moment. For the first time in years, felt at peace. 3 days later, Eva and I arrived at the airport. This time, there was no one to abandon us, no one to exploit me, no endless calls demanding money. Just the two of us, a new journey and complete freedom. Eva had been buzzing with excitement all morning. She could barely sit still, knowing we were headed to Malibu, a breathtaking paradise with white sandy beaches and crystal clear waters. As we settled into our seats on the plane, she turned to me, her eyes shining with anticipation. "Daddy, we don't have to wait for anyone this time, right?" I chuckled, ruffling her hair. "That's right, my little princess. This time, no one can leave us behind." The flight lasted a few hours but felt lighter than any trip I'd ever taken. No pressure, no burdens, no one to take care of except my daughter. As we exited the airport, a cool ocean breeze greeted us. Took a deep breath, savoring the salty scent of the sea. This was the life Eva and I deserved. Eva pressed her face to the window as our taxi approached the beachfront resort. Eyes wide with wonder. "Daddy, look, the ocean is so blue. It looks just like in the movies." I turned to her, and at that moment, seeing her radiant smile, every ounce of stress in me melted away. I reached down and held her hand tightly. "Sweetheart, this will be the best trip ever." She squeezed my hand, beaming. "Daddy, I love you the most in the whole world." I looked at the horizon where the sun shimmered over the waves. I wasn't just a single father for the first time in years. I was a free man. 3 days passed like a dream. Eva and I soaked in every moment on the beach, uninterrupted, no phone calls, no demanding messages. No one is forcing responsibilities onto me, just the two of us, laughter, and the endless blue waves. The moment our plane landed in New York, I turned my phone back on, and a storm of messages hit me. Over 50 unread texts. I sighed, scrolling through the flood of notifications. Every single one was from my in-laws, mother-in-law. "Ethan, why are you acting like this? Do you have any idea how much we're struggling?" "Father-in-law, you think cutting off money is the solution? Family doesn't treat each other this way." "Kevin, are you really this heartless? My landlord is threatening to evict me. Do you want Rachel's daughter to see her mother's family fall apart?" I skimmed through them all, not one message asking if I was okay or Eva had a good time. They only cared about one thing: money. I smirked, feeling an odd sense of calm. I wasn't even surprised anymore. This time I wouldn't respond the way I used to. I turned off my phone, slipped it into my pocket and took Eva's hand. "Did you like our trip?" She nodded eagerly, her eyes shining. "When can we go again, Daddy?" I smiled, pulling our suitcase toward the exit. "Soon, my little princess." Very soon after tucking Eva into bed that night, I returned to the living room, only for my phone to buzz again. This time it wasn't another call or message from my in-laws. It was a link from a friend. "Ethan, you need to see this." Click the link, read it. Post was gaining thousands of upvotes and comments. The title: "My brother-in-law is ungrateful. He cut off my family right after his wife died." I smirked. "Kevin?" I started reading. Asterisk. "Hey everyone, I need an outside perspective. I have a brother-in-law who used to be a kind guy, but after my sister passed away he became unbelievably cold and selfish. Our family did everything to support him through the tough times. We were there for him and helped take care of his daughter. My parents are elderly and have no stable income, so they rely on him to pay the rent. I've also been struggling financially. And now my landlord is threatening to evict me. We tried talking to him, but he said, 'I don't know anyone anything.' This is beyond cruel. He was a good man, but I don't recognize him anymore. Am I wrong for expecting a little support from my brother-in-law? Asterisk. The comments had exploded. Some people sympathized with Kevin. The majority saw right through his nonsense. Your family wasn't forcing him but relied on his money to survive. Sounds more like exploitation than asking for help. Michael, a grown man who can't afford his rent. Your brother-in-law isn't your ATM, Hannah. If I were him I would have cut you all off too. Jack, I chuckled and closed my phone. Let's see how Kevin gets the opposite reaction of what he expected. I thought everything was finally over. I was wrong. A week later, while I was at work, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I frowned but answered anyway. Mr. Carter, this is David Reynolds, legal representative for your in-laws. I raised an eyebrow, biting back a laugh. Are they trying to sue me for not paying their rent? Not exactly a lawsuit, but we want to discuss your financial responsibilities and laws. They believe that since you supported them for a long time, cutting them off without notice has severely impacted their livelihood. This time I didn't hold back. I laughed. So you're saying I should have given them a warning before deciding to stop letting them exploit me? David hesitated briefly, probably realizing this case had no legal standing, but he pushed forward anyway. They are simply hoping for a fair discussion. We can find a reasonable compromise. I cut him off, my voice firm. There's no law that requires me to support them. I have no financial obligation to anyone except my daughter's silence. Then alongside, I suppose that's true. I smirked. Then this conversation is over, and I hung up a month ago. My life took a significant turn. My company offered me a promotion, a higher position with a better salary, but it required me to relocate to San Diego. I thought long and hard about it. New York had been my home, my entire life. It held so many memories of Rachel, but it was also the place that had kept me trapped in manipulation and exploitation. For the past 2 years, I looked at Ava sitting on the living room floor, happily painting with her colors. I didn't want my daughter to grow up in such a toxic environment. I made my decision: sell this house, buy a new one, leave the city behind and start fresh with my daughter. For 3 weeks I quietly arranged everything. I listed my old home, signed the contract for a new house in San Diego, and packed up our lives. I didn't tell my in-laws. They didn't need to know. They were no longer part of my life. Today, as I stood in front of our new home, a cozy house with a spacious yard, the ocean breeze gently rolling in, I knew I had made the right choice. Ava ran across the grass, her laughter ringing through the air. Daddy, I love our new house. I crouched down, lifting her into my arms, looking straight into her innocent eyes. I promise, sweetheart. This is a new beginning, a new life, a place where no one can ever hurt us. Again, I had let go of the past, and this time I was truly free. What do you think about this story? If you were in my position, what would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more incredible stories. Thanks for watching.